Hello and welcome to Same Here,
Me Too. This is our podcast.
where we open up the conversation about life and share our experiences. The raw, the real.
Don't forget the embarrassing.
Of course, and all the juicy tidbits of our lives.
Telling our stories, what we've learnt as young women in our 20s. Nothing is off limits. Giving you true life unfiltered.
The podcast that makes you realise you're not alone. Hello and welcome back to Same Here.
Me Too.
My name is Naomi and I'm your host.
That's a very backwards way of doing it. And I'm Cora and I'm your other host.
So every now and then, it's like we do the same thing every week. And every
changed
now and
up.
then you're just like, that's not what's going to happen today. So, I'm your host, Naomi.
And I'm your other host, Cora.
What is up?
Welcome back to our channel if you're watching on YouTube, and welcome back to listening if you're listening on any other platform.
Welcome.
It's good to have you back, everybody.
Absolutely. And if you're brand new, big shout out to you. Welcome to the fam. Hope you enjoy and hope you come back.
We won't scare you away. No, we won't. Anyway, so let's just jump straight into our weekly check-in. Again, this is just reminding everyone that when we do a weekly check-in, it's very much just kind of us remembering what this kind of happened this week, checking in with ourselves, because I think sometimes we get so carried away during the week with our lives. We sometimes forget and reflect on what actually happened that week. So we're just going to jump in with that. So Naomi, what's been happening this week for you? What's your weekly check-in?
Well, this week I started my a new challenge, and so it's called 75 Hard. Now, for those of you who don't know 75 Hard, it was created by a guy called Andy Frisella, and it's basically 75 days. It's a 75-day challenge to enhance your mental toughness or create your mental toughness. Yeah. It's all about discipline. It's pretty manic. For 75 days, you choose a diet and you stick to it. You have no cheat meals. You drink no alcohol. You do 2 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outside, come rain, hail, or shine. And you have to read 10 pages of your book every day, and nonfiction. And you have to drink a gallon of water a day. It's pretty hardcore.
It is. I could probably do all of that except for the alcohol. I couldn't give up alcohol for 75 days. I couldn't. I'd get 4 days in, I need a glass of wine. So
see, it's really funny because for me, that's probably one of the easiest things for me to give up.
We're very different sometimes.
Don't get me wrong, I love my gin, but because I've had to do it in the past for health reasons, stopping drinking is not that big of a deal for me. And it's actually, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not, I'm very much just a social drinker. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not the kind of person who at the end of the day sits down at, in front of the TV and has a glass of wine. I'll do it socially, but I've just never really been that person. So I started that. Today was day 6. Today is day 6. So I've already done my first workout. I've already read my pages. I'm already into my water. And honestly, that's pretty much been the main thing that's happened this week. It's been really interesting because for me, I just want to see where I can go with it. It's not a weight loss challenge or anything like that for me. It's very much I want to basically see how disciplined I can be over the next 75 days. And the funny thing is as we've said in previous episodes, there's never the right time to try something. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to the Hunter Valley, which is a wine region. And one of the things we're going to be doing is wine tasting. I think it's a wine and chocolate tour, wine, chocolate, cheese tour. So I can eat the cheese. You're
missing out the two best parts, the chocolate and the wine.
I know. So it's pretty crazy, but I really wanted to give it a go and just challenge myself to kind of expand. I've also just reignited my business. So it all kind of works hand in hand of just getting that dedication, getting that discipline. And so that's been what I've been up to.
Nice. Yeah. For me, I have been flat out. This week at work, I have been non-stop. I have been on video shoots and film shoots pretty much most of the week. I have been I've just not stopped. I've just been manic. But it's just been good because it means the week's gone really fast, but it means I've literally exhausted myself. And it's really funny because we were supposed to record last night and both me and Amy were like, nah, we're knackered, let's just stop. But I was like, okay, well, I really need to, at my work, we're having to move over to working from home. So our office here is closing. We're moving from working from home, which I'm super excited about because I don't know anyone else, but I love the idea of getting up. I'm a night owl. I like to sleep. I work better in the evenings. I do not like getting up early in the morning. So for me to get up like maybe 45 minutes before I have to start my work is great because I literally can get up, get ready and be at my desk within 45 minutes. So I get a nice little bit more lay in. So I'm very excited about that. But I don't have anywhere to work in my home. I've got no desk or chair or anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to pop to IKEA tonight. So I went to IKEA and got myself a nice desk, got myself a nice chair.
Looks really good.
I'm really happy with it, actually. It's not
really
a massive one. It's a little small one. And I was tossing up between big ones and small ones. I was like, I don't really need a massive desk. It's literally just me now. All I need is a laptop and a screen. Like, I don't need a lot. So I got a smaller one, which is obviously a little bit cheaper as well because I was like, I don't want to spend that much money. So I got my nice little working desk. I'm very happy with it all. So no, it was very good. However, so I was really happy. It's going really well. Unfortunately, very, very sad for me is I've got one of my best friends, Nick, is getting married over in Perth. And I was supposed to fly out on Thursday to go see him, but obviously with coronavirus and with happening in Brisbane, we obviously were put into a hot zone and Perth wasn't letting, or WA wasn't letting Queenslanders in without having to quarantine for 2 weeks. And I can't afford to quarantine for 2 weeks because my work won't give it to me. They finally opened up the borders the day of the wedding. I'm like...
Which is on Monday.
Which is Monday. So I was like...
Yeah, which was Monday.
So I can't go. So I was very upset about that whole thing. But so that's very depressing and not very fun. But the bright side, I look for silver lining in everything, is Nick's mum, who lives in Brisbane, she managed to get a last minute flight out. So she lands 54 minutes after the restrictions are lifted. So she literally lands and then they go straight to the wedding. Like, she's literally like, I'm going to be there. And she has a new little puppy.
Oh, she's so cute.
So I'm babysitting puppy. So I don't get to go to the wedding, but I get a puppy this week for the next week. So I'm very happy about that. So silver lining, people. When things look bad, you look for a silver lining.
That's always a silver lining.
Also, I should have a quick shout out to my, if you're not, obviously, hang on. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll probably see this visually. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'm very sorry. If you're not watching, if you're listening, I'm very sorry you don't quite get this. We'll take a photo and we'll post it to our Instagram. Basically,
if you've noticed anything interesting about this picture here today.
Okay, so I said to Naomi, I'll be here early in the morning and we'll start recording earlier. Me was slow getting ready and I got here later. As I walked in to Naomi's house, Naomi pops out from her kitchen to say, oh, what time do you call this? Or this is an interesting time. And
this is an interesting 8:30.
Yeah.
It's and like an hour and a half later.
And I popped out and I just look at what she's wearing and I just drop dead, fall to the floor in hysterics laughing because we're wearing the exact same top.
Yeah.
Not only wearing the exact same top, our hair is exactly the same. So I walk in to her house. We have not planned this. I literally just walk in and I'm like, oh dear Lord.
And I literally turn around and I'm like, well, this is how we're going to be recording the podcast because neither of us are getting changed and it will be hilarious. Like, totally unplanned.
So unplanned.
And
it's that whole thing that fear of like going to like a party and someone's wearing the same thing you're wearing. It's like literally we just turned up and we're like, well, that's interesting. So
it's
you
like, oh, I like your fashion. That's what I always think. It's like, oh, I love that dress. Like, yeah.
I find it so funny. It's like
taste.
people say to us all the time, oh God, you two are so similar. And we're like, no, we're not. And then it's like, okay, maybe we are.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So we're twinsing it today.
Yep.
But yeah, so today we wanted to jump in. This is a bit of a interesting episode because
bit of a fun episode,
bit of an interesting episode because last week, Taylor Swift dropped her new Fearless album that she re-recorded all her old music from when she was a child.
Yes.
And we were listening back.
Child. When she was younger.
Okay, well when she was like 17, 18. That's a kid.
Not a child though. Child you think of like under the age of 12.
Okay, teen. Then.
When she was young.
When she was younger. And I was listening back and I actually haven't listened to these songs in years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like I just like they play.
Yeah.
I'll like listen to like a throwback song, but I don't actively go and listen to them. I'll
Yeah.
listen to her new music now, and it was really interesting because some of the songs, one of the songs she's added, but some of the songs you're listening to, being older, you're seeing it through as a new light.
Oh yeah.
And you actually, more of the songs that I related to as a kid, I'm like, oh, not anymore. But the ones I do relate to now, I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, that's me. That is me in lyrics to a song.
Crazy.
And you thought the exact same thing, Naomi.
I did. I had a very funny experience. So actually, before I go into that, that is what today's episode is about.
Yes.
We want to basically talk about how, first of all, this album and how funny it's been listening back to it and having those experiences. But at the same time, looking at the metaphor behind that and how that experience of, you know, experiencing something when you're younger and then experiencing the same thing again when you're older, how that can show us a lot about our journey and what we've learned and who we now have become. So that's kind of what we're doing today.
Yeah, it's kind of realize, because we all know we grow up, we all know we gain wisdom, we all know that. But I think we don't realize it. Now, knowing and realizing are very different things. And I think it's when you've realized that you've grown and evolved, that puts you in a complete elevated new mind.
Yeah.
And I think that the things you unlock is huge. So yeah, we'll touch a little bit on that. So on that, Naomi, what was the songs? Let's just quickly touch on this. What was the song that you were like, Cora, this is me now, you need to listen to this? I was like, what are you talking about? And I listened, I was like, wow.
Yeah. So one of my favorite songs when it came out and like when I was growing up was You Belong to Me. And I loved it. I thought it was an epic song. It was so great. It's a bop, like you're just jamming out to it. Anyway, I listened to it the other day. I was driving in the car and I had the album on and I started listening to it. And I'm singing along, having a great time. And then I just went, oh gosh. Oh, I'm Taylor in this situation. Oh my gosh, this was me in high school. Oh my gosh, I know the exact situation where this is me. And I just went, oh, what? So anyway, when I stopped driving, I got my phone out and I messaged Cora and I'm like, Cora, oh my gosh. And I'm pretty sure I did everything in capital letters.
Yeah, it was like she's screaming at me. She's like, boo, guess what? Oh my God, you belong with me. It's me. And I'm like, okay.
It was so funny. And so Cora went and listened to it and she's like, oh yeah, I see it. And I was like, you know, the lyrics, she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts, she's cheer captain, I know I'm on the bleachers. I'm listening to him like, that's the epitome of who I am. Like literally, you know, high heels, sneakers, like I literally am the Taylor in that song. And it was just so interesting because listening to that song took on this whole new light, I suppose, because from, you know, being back in high school when that song came out and listening to it and relating to it as a 15, 16-year-old is completely different to 10 years later listening to it as a 27-year-old and going, oh, I can literally see when this related to me in my life and actually see how I have changed since then. And it's just been like, it was so surreal. I said to Cora, I was like, oh my gosh, this was literally me with this person in high school. Like, I'm not even kidding. And I listened to the song like multiple times because I was like, no. Yeah. It was crazy. So it was a really interesting experience. And I think we all have that when, you know, we listen to a song that we listened to when we were younger and it brings up old memories, or, you know, we go out and we smell something or we see something or we do something and it brings up old memories of what we've experienced in the past. But for me, listening to that song, because I've listened to so many songs that, you know, I experienced as, you know, growing up. But this one, I just kind of sat there and I went, I almost want to message this person and be like,
listen to the song.
It's funny because
You're now best friends with them.
Yeah, we're best friends. That's going to give it away, isn't it?
To that person is, not to everybody else. But yeah, no,
Yep.
that's interesting. Well, I think for me, the one that kind of, when I was growing up, the one I related to, well, I thought I related to, was called Hey Stephen.
Hey Stephen, I know this can be deceiving.
And it was, because that one's kind of very much of like her saying to a guy that, like, look, I might not be the prettiest girl, but I'm the one for you. And it's her kind of falling in love with somebody. And I was I still am a hopeless romantic completely. But as a kid, I was always the guys' best friends. So I got on with all the guys. I was always friends with them because I was really into sport and I was always good friends with them, but they never saw me that way. They only ever saw me as, oh, it's Cora. And obviously I was always the one that kind of always got overlooked because I wasn't the prettiest.
One of the lads.
I was one of the lads. Until I went to an all-girls. Then I moved to England, went to all-girls school, and then that changed. So I went to all-girls school. But when I was in high school in Australia, it was very much that. And primary school. And I was. And there was times where I was, hopelessly in love with these guys, and they just didn't see me that way. And it's like saying, hey, no, like, I'm here. And
I know I'm really cool and we do cool stuff, but
hey.
Also.
And so I heavily related to that. But now, listening to the music, she put a song on there. It's a new song that obviously from her vault, but she's put on called Mr. Perfectly Fine.
Great song.
And I listened. At first, I was just listening to it. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. This is a cool song. Yeah. Ooh. And then when I stopped and actually started to listen to the words of the lyrics.
Which happened because Ellie messaged Cora and was
one of my best friends,
listen
Ellie,
to it.
messaged me. She's like, oh my God, Cora, this is you and me from our last relationships. I'm like, okay. So I actually then listened to the lyrics. And holy crumbles, it was. And I was like,
Holy crumbles.
it literally is my last relationship written down in lyrics, one by one. I'm like, there you go.
I feel attacked.
I feel very attacked right now. But it was interesting for me to realize the change growing up is as a young girl, I was almost in love with the idea of being in love. And I wanted guys to notice me. But now growing up, like I went through a heartbreak, a very bad heartbreak. It's made me very wary of men. But now I've made me appreciate that it's okay to be guys mates.
Yeah.
Whereas at school, I hated the fact I was only the guys mates. Where now I'm like, oh no, I love that factor about me. And it's interesting how that growth is. In order to get to that point, I had to go through a heartbreak. I think if I hadn't gone through a heartbreak, I would still be like, oh yeah, what a guy,
Yeah.
So it is really interesting how, like 11, 12 years, of course it's going to make a difference in your life and you know that deep down.
Yeah.
But I think when you start to put it in perspective and go, okay, what actually has changed in my life? Why has that? And you realize that it almost unlocks the power of me going, wow, if I've done this in 11 years, what is the next 11 years going to be like?
Yeah, it's crazy.
What is the next 11 years going to be like for me there? It really makes you realize that you can do anything and that your life is going to take you down paths you don't realize they're going to take you down. And that's okay. And I think we are so fixated on the future. And I'm so guilty of that. I'm like, oh, one day when I'm older and I'm gonna, I'm gonna have this, or when I'm gonna be a mum, like this, or I'm gonna have this type of car, I'm gonna have this type of husband, or whatever it is. Yeah. I think every person has thought about their future or thinks about their future on a daily. And as kids, we do the same thing. Oh, when I'm older and da-da-da-da. And you think when you're 24, you're going to be married with kids. And you get to 24, you're like, that's not going to happen.
No, thank you.
That's one of the biggest things. I actually remember, sorry, sidetracking a little bit. My sister and her best friend came to me and my best friend and said, how old do you guys think you'll be when, you kiss a guy, when you first have sex, when you get married? And we were telling them, like, let's write this down. So they wrote it down. They actually wrote down our answers. And then on my 18th birthday, she gave us the, she's like, oh, do you remember this? I'm like, oh my God. I don't think it was on my 18th birthday. I think we discovered it when we moved, she discovered it when I was like about 18, 19. And I was rereading the answers. I was like, wow. And even at 18, I knew, I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like I had that I was going to be married by 23. And 24 basically married, have kids by the age of 25, 26.
Oh my God.
And like the first time I was going to have sex was going to be like, I think it was like 20. First kiss was like 18, which wasn't the case. But also it's really funny because at 18, I knew that I'm not going to get married or have kids until I'm at least my 30s. Now that I'm closer to my 30s, I'm like, yeah, mid 30s max now. It's really funny how when you get to those ages, the post keeps moving.
Yeah.
But it's good though, because it means that you're actually enjoying your life now, that it doesn't matter what the future holds because you're actually living in the moment now. Yeah. And that's what I took away from it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that I'm living now. I'm not thinking about my future. I'm thinking about the now. But knowing that I have changed from when I was a kid, I'm not the same person, makes me go, oh, it's okay. I'm going to change when I'm older, but I can still live the now and not worry about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful point because it is true. A lot of us do get very fixated on what we want our life to look like and who we want to be and, oh, if we're like this right now, how are we ever going to get to where we want to go and, all of those things. And I think, as long as you're on the path of going towards where you want to go, you'll get there, but remember to live in the moment. So I think coming back to why we chose to do this episode, it was first of all because we wanted to share how funny it was for us to listen to these songs again and kind of re-experience it as an adult. I think, if you're on TikTok, you will have seen and you like Taylor Swift. So if you're on TikTok, you like Taylor Swift, you will have seen many, many, many TikToks of girls who are basically like in the month of April, when Taylor Swift releases her album, they're sitting in the shower with their bottles of wine and they're, like so many TikToks. It's really funny. And then the caption is like, I've been in a loving relationship for the last 3 years, but I have
living
to
my 17
moment. Like, and because all of a sudden, what we listened to as 12, 13, 14, 15, our teen years, what we listened to then and what we thought we understood then now is so much more relatable because we've had the heartbreaks, we've had the major highs, we've had the major lows, and all of a sudden this album that shaped so many of us as young girls has now come back to us. And if we think about Taylor, she's literally like, we've grown up with her and she's grown up with us, so she will have had the same thing. She will have had her heartbreaks at that age, especially living the life that she did, but lives, yeah. And so now, if you think about it, she's now become this incredibly strong, incredibly independent, powerful, inspirational woman, and we all still relate to her, so it's this journey that we've seen someone take. She's done it on the global stage. We've seen her go from a 15, 16-year-old girl who tried to please everyone and lived for the applause and lived for the spotlight and all of that because she wanted to feel that validation and that, appreciation. Now being this incredibly powerful, incredibly strong woman who I now look at and go, you've become such a badass. Yeah. You still seem this beautiful human, but you have become so strong from everything you've experienced. And I think that we can all relate to that. We think back to, I know for myself, I was also completely romantic. I'm still a romantic, but in a more grown-up way.
I think a more realistic way.
Yeah, more realistic way.
Because when we're girls, I know I was, like, when we're young girls, we think of, like, the big romantic gestures that guys do in movies, like Prince Charming. You think in those sense. When you're older, something romantic is the little things for me. Like, it's not those big romantic gestures. It's the smaller things. And when you grow up, you appreciate, oh, it's not him, picking me up in a limousine with a red rose and taking me out to dinner. No, it's just him showing up and coming over, going, hey, I'm cooking you dinner tonight because I want to.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, thanks. Or like, you know, just bringing home flowers for the sake of it. Like those little things are so much more romantic than a big grand gesture. And I think you might still be the same sort of things, but the way you pawn it is changed. And so going back to Taylor is she has become so strong, but she's become so sure of herself. Like as a girl, you can hear it in her music. She tried to be like, oh, I don't care what, you know, the paparazzi say about me. So she wrote the song Mean, which was a great song, basically saying, you know, you might be this, you're always going to be mean, I'll be great. And it was a good, powerful way of kind of telling the media to kind of go where the sun don't shine. But it was done in a sweet way. Whereas then when she writes Bad Reputation, she writes all these other songs which are literally Bad Blood, which are literally saying to them, I don't give a rat's ass what you think about me, what you write about me. I'm writing music because I love it. And that was way more powerful because she became more powerful and she became more sure of herself. You know, look, as women, we all have our doubts. It's nature. But I think when you're in the thick of any sort of moment in your life, you really don't see how it is impacting you until you're out of it and look back later. And I think for me, like listening to Mr. Perfectly Fine, I'm like literally like honestly verbatim. It's like my past relationship. It's ridiculous. But when I was in it, I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it in a way where it was hurting me. I didn't see it. I just thought, oh no, that's just normal. This is just normal. And it wasn't until I'm now out of it, I'm listening to this song, I'm like, oh yeah, he wasn't the right man for me. He was saying all these things like, I'll never leave you, we'll be together forever. But actually when push came to shove, he dropped me like a hatch and now dating somebody else. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Right. But for me, I'm like, oh, but that's okay because you weren't Mr. Perfect. You were perfectly fine for now, for then, but you weren't my Mr. Perfect or my Mr. Right. And I literally listening back now and obviously being completely out of it and completely getting over that relationship, I'm like, oh, and I can laugh about it. Like I wasn't like I was sad. I literally just sat there laughing. I'm like, oh my God, this is my life. And it really made me pinpoint how far I've grown. And like I said, that realization of, oh, okay, I didn't see it at the time, but I see it now. And wow, I've come a long, long way. And also, you know, you put more value on yourself as well. So if you're somebody who is kind of in something right now and you're kind of not really sure, maybe look back, get out your photo album, look at old photos of you in high school, in primary school, how like look back when you were younger and try and remember those experiences you were having. And I guarantee you now, if you compare, you have completely changed and grown, and that realization will probably help you through so if you're dealing with it now, will help you through that moment a little bit because you're like, okay, well, I've gone through that, I can get through this.
And also, I think it reminds us, you know, when we're younger, actually at any age, whenever we go through something that's big and earth-shattering in our minds, we've gone through it. Like if you're watching this, you've gone through all of those things. Done it. You know, you experienced those things in high school. You had those heartbreaks. You had those boys who didn't love you. You know, you had unrequited love. We've all been there. We've had heartbreak. And I think when we grow up, it's one of the most incredible experiences once we get to a point where we start to be really sure of ourselves. And I think that is one of the most powerful realizations that we can have, anybody can have, is, you know, for so long we try and please, we try and get everyone to like us. We try and, you know, be part of the pack, and whoever the pack may be, you know, when in actual fact, chances are they're feeling the exact same way as you. And then we get to a point where we realize, well, actually, I am that girl on the bleachers in t-shirts and sneakers in, you know, glasses.
And that's okay.
And that's who I am. And I'm so proud of it too. Like, I absolutely love who I am, and I love who I've become and who I'm becoming. It's just, I think it's the coolest journey. And this is a recent thing. Like, this is not who I've been my whole life.
Like, this is,
But it is something that I am now becoming so, it's almost like relaxing. It's, you just kind of breathe out and you go, oh, it's an exhale.
It's like taking it for bras. Like,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It literally feels like that feeling of that constraint you've been feeling, but thinking I'm comfortable, but it's actually restraining you. And at the end of the night, you take it off and you're like, oh, I'm free. I'm free. It's that, it is like a complete
release.
Breath. Yeah, release.
Yeah. So I think, wrapping this up, we hope, first of all, hope you've enjoyed this. And if you are a Taylor Swift fan, go and listen back to the album.
We'll link the album in the description box below.
Yes, because it's really interesting how things change, how your perspective changes, and how you can see the growth of who you've become, and also see how powerful this journey has been. And I think, again, coming back to what Taylor has done, it's literally been a journey that we've been able to follow along with for a massive part of our lives. And it is iconic and it is incredible because we go, oh, well, we've kind of all done this together. So first of all, know that you're not doing this alone. As we always say, you're not alone. And know that wherever you're at, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Everything that you go through will make you stronger, and it will make you more of a badass, because you will become more and more sure of yourself as you continue to grow. And if you can fall in love with that progress and fall in love with that process, then you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, just coming off the bat of that, is if you are somebody who's like, oh, you guys you've gone through it, and you don't kind of not listening to what kind of we're saying, and like, oh, you don't understand, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, and you're feeling like really stuck, really take a moment, like I said, go back through your old photos, remember what your life was back then, and look at what it is now. I mean, there's a TikTok trend going around of like girls crying into mugs saying, when I was 15, had loads of friends, had boys liking me, and had no bills to pay, crying. And me now, no boyfriend, only a few friends, completely in debt, and just like still living my life. And it's true, like we change perspective. So get those photo albums out, have a look through, have a laugh, because I can guarantee my style has completely changed as well, so it's hysterical. But have a look, have a laugh, and have a remember, and realize that you have probably changed more than you have realized, actually. And if you've changed this much so far, you've got a long way to go, and you will change, and you'll get through whatever it is you're going through now, because you've done it before without realizing you did.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Hope you have a lovely week. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any episodes, and give this episode a like. If you're listening on Spotify, Google Play, or Apple Podcasts, please give this a follow or a subscribe. So you can also
leave us a review.
Leave us a review, and let us know if you guys have any topics you want us to cover. Send us a DM or write a comment write a comment.
Absolutely. And also make sure you are following us on all of our social media channels, our Facebook, our Instagram, and our TikTok at Same Hear Me Too. And lastly, if you have any guests who you would love to hear us speak to, who you would love to have on the podcast, then please shoot them through as well, because we are now finally looking at getting some guests on the show. So we're super excited about that, and we would love to know who you would like to hear from. On that note, have a beautiful week, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
That was a really delayed bye. Bye.